Good morning. It's Sunday morning, and I want to come to you and do something new. It's called less than five, extra less than 5 minute devotional. It's a continuation of my thought from Friday on confession and the power and the authority that's in uh, when someone confesses and you say you're forgiven, and the freedom that you feel when you confess and someone says you're forgiven. And I was just doing a little bit further study on this, and I was reading in Matthew chapter 16 where Jesus is talking to Peter, and he tells Peter that upon Peter's confession, he's going to build his church. He's going to build his church upon Peter's confession. And I was thinking about the power that's in confession, in confessing. And I was looking at verse 19 when Jesus tells Peter, he says, I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. And we know that scripture real well, especially those of us who are big intercessory prayer type people, those who are effective prayers. We use that passage a lot to bind and loose things, and sometimes I think we take that scripture out of context when we're trying to pray something, binding and loose. We want to bind things up and loose things and use our authority in the wrong way. But this passage in the original Greek is literally talking about that whatever you bind on earth has already been bound in heaven. In other words, the authority that's been given you, it's already been established in heaven. And I would submit to you that that authority, when it was established, was when Jesus says, it is done, it is finished, when he's hanging on the cross and he gives up the ghost, so to speak. He says it is finished, and that's when everything, the kingdom of heaven, that's when everything was finalized. And I would submit to you that we're not establishing a new authority. We've already been given all the authority that we need. It's already been done in heaven. And so we recognize what God has already done, and we follow suit with that. That's what it means to follow God's will. We recognize what God has already done, and he's given us the authority and the keys to carry out what he's already done, what he's already accomplished. And those things that he accomplished, forgiveness of sins and healings and things like that, has already been done for us, and so we can carry those out. And my thought behind this is that we're the representatives of God's kingdom here on earth. And so we act and we do things upon the authority that's been given us in the kingdom. And those things are to denounce and expose sin in Matthew chapter 18, verse 15 through 18, looking at my notes here. The second thing is to pray effectively according to God's purpose on earth. That's Matthew 18, 19, and 20. And then the last one, the authority that's been given to us and the representation that we are here on earth for God's kingdom, is to proclaim forgiveness and to battle spiritually for salvation. And when someone confesses to us, we have the authority, as Jesus had, to say you're forgiven, and that sets people free. And that's Matthew 18:35. Jesus tells the disciples that if you don't forgive, you won't be forgiven. And of course, John 20:23 says, if you forgive someone of their sins, they're forgiven. And if you don't forgive them, they're not forgiven. So I just wanted to elaborate and continue on with my thought of confession and forgiveness and the authority that's been given to us. I hope this blesses you, and I'll see you next Friday.